Welcome to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crime Stoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crimes by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crime Stoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General, Crime Stoppers Trust Fund, and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crime Stoppers work. On today's show, we'll talk with Tom Foy, Special Agent in charge of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's Tampa Bay Regional Operations Center. The mission of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement is to promote public safety and strengthen domestic security by providing services in partnership with local, state, and federal criminal justice agencies to prevent, investigate, and solve crimes while protecting Florida citizens and visitors. Agent Foy, thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you, Chip. I appreciate the opportunity.
That's quite a task, especially with this domestic security that y'all are tasked with the state.
Well, it certainly is. Obviously, the security of the citizens of our communities in the state of Florida is the utmost importance to all of us.
Yeah. Now, before we get too much into that, tell us a little bit about how you got involved in law enforcement. I understand that you spent a couple of years over in Mickey Mouse Town.
I sure did. I came down from upstate New York about 150 years ago and went to UCF, pursued my criminal justice degree, played some baseball there, and about after 4 years of doing that, walked into the police academy sponsored by the Orlando Police Department, which I was fortunate enough to be a member of for 21 years, retired there. Worked at various amounts of assignments, narcotics, interdiction, drug dog handler, undercover work, training and recruiting, violent crimes, CID. Was on the SWAT team for 16 years, retired as a deputy team commander. Thankfully had the opportunity to serve with a lot of good people there. So a lot of good times at Orlando PD, but I walked out of there and walked down the street into FDLE in Orlando in 2004. And another awesome agency. I've been fortunate to have two excellent professional agencies to work for. But here in FDLE, I went from Orlando after several years there, was promoted, took an opportunity to move to Fort Myers, where I was the ASAC in that region. So after 3 years, I had the opportunity to come here to the great region of Tampa Bay, where I'm the special agent in charge.
Now, when you were with Orlando PD, you were in the homicide unit there for a while.
I was the commander of the unit, yeah.
And worked with a lady that is very important to Crime Stoppers, Barb Bergen, who is now our national president for the Crime Stoppers USA, and so you and Barb worked together.
Well, actually, Barb and I were in my original police academy together in Orlando, so we go back a long ways. I can't take credit for having any of the experience or the legendary status that Barb holds. She was an incredible detective. I just allowed good people to work beneath me, and Barb was gone by then. But yeah, she was very, very influential in that community. Yes.
Well, it sounds like you really have law enforcement in your blood.
Well, I do. 33 years, and I don't see an end yet. It keeps me going.
Well, that's
good people around me, and it's certainly coming here and refreshing to work in the Tampa Bay region. Last 2 years, nothing but strong partnerships in the law enforcement community. So,
and those partnerships are so important, especially since 9/11. And as we talked earlier about the domestic security for Florida, you have a number of things that y'all deal with and work with, and tools that you use. Tell us more about that, if you will.
Well, certainly. If you look at the root of it for FDLE, Florida State Statute 943, obviously, and you can read more about this on our website, but it dictates that the commissioner, who presently is Commissioner Swearingen for FDLE, is basically the commander for the state. He's in charge of domestic security for state agencies and for developing and keeping a plan for domestic security. There's a strategic plan which can be found online for the whole state, and It's constantly reviewed. There's through that strategy, there long ago, shortly after 9/11, regional domestic security task forces were formed in every region of the state, and we have 7 of them. And in each region, there's strong partnerships, and they've been going a long time now, since 9/11, which involves funding and training and ideas and collaboration, partnerships. And those partnerships are built to be prepared to protect our citizens and to respond. We all know, unfortunately, so close to where we are here in Polk County, that right across to Mickey Mouse Land, as you say, the tragedy of the Pulse nightclub. Well, the partnerships that were formed there in that region and all across the state paid dividends in the response efforts, because one thing when you're dealing with domestic security, or for the most part any policing, any type of law enforcement, whether it's mutual aid, hurricanes, or domestic security, building partnerships on the front end is what's the most important. You have to have you can't wait until something happens to try to see what that chief or sheriff looks like and try to come together. So those partnerships on the front end and the collaboration is important. Speaking of, we talked about the collaboration and partnerships. Everything that you deal with and I deal with, and I would talk about see something, say something when it comes to protecting our citizens. If we don't have the community's partnership and have them calling the local police departments, the sheriff's departments, us, at say, see something, say something, which they could actually call at 1-855-FLA-SAFE.
Now, this is a new program that y'all have. Well, you've had it for a while.
We've adopted, the rights to it were from Homeland Security from after 9/11, but we got into that program in 2010, I believe it is. But most recently, the last several years, we've really been stepping up our efforts, because it's not just for FDLE, it's for everybody. If they don't, it's a reminder to stay vigilant, and for all the citizens, we need their help.
Absolutely.
I can't say this is a fact, but looking back at most of the tragedies around the world, and we've certainly had our share in recent years, but my intuition is that in most of those, someone knew something and may not have come forward.
And all they have to do is to, you have that tip line that says, see something, say something.
Right.
They can call Crime Stoppers. But what they call you, it is a coordinated effort. And I think a lot of times people don't want to be accused of being racist or being bigoted against a certain person.
It's behavior. We're not looking at individuals or what they look like. It's the behavior that goes with it. Right down to the level of you and I living on our streets in a residential neighborhood. If you've been there any length of time, you know what's out of place.
Certainly.
You know if there's a car out of place. You know if there's an individual who's standing around that you just don't think belongs there based on the behavior, what they're doing. Take that to a government building or any type of infrastructure facilities where they're hanging around or they're asking questions that seem a little too in-depth, a little strange. The hair on the back of somebody's neck is standing up. Those are the times where that behavior or what they're asking about, they're something we should know about. And no information is, what I'm trying to say is citizens should not hold back saying, well, this is silly, I shouldn't call on this. Call, whether it's our tip line, yours, Crime Stoppers, call the sheriff's office or the police department they live at, and let us determine if it's valuable. Much better on the end to let us work through it and see if it's a good tip or not.
Yeah, people don't need to be nosy.
Right.
They just need to be aware.
Correct.
And if it kind of raises that suspicion in your own mind and you wonder, well, it's probably nothing, it's better to err on the side of caution, to report it, And just that little tidbit of information could have averted maybe something as the Pulse over in Orlando.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Folks, just want to reiterate that if you see something, say something. It's just that simple. If it makes the hair on your neck stand up, or as we sometimes say, if it makes your teeth itch, it's better to be safe than sorry. We need to try to avoid just too many of these incidences that we've seen recently in the last couple of years. So if you see something, say something. Call FDLE. You can call Crime Stoppers. You can call your local law enforcement agency. It's just that simple. Well, Agent Foy, I can ask you to stick around for a few minutes as we get into the second half, but first we want to take a look at some of our most recent cases. Crime Stoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. These efforts increase tips, which in turn solve more crimes and identify criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent unsolved cases.
On October 20th, 2017, at approximately 2:55 a.m., 24-year-old Brandon Trenaz Mills of Opelika was struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver in a 2000 block of U.S. Highway 92 East in Lakeland. Based on the vehicle parts found at the roadway, the suspect vehicle is possibly a Mitsubishi Outlander. It might have fresh damage on the front end, especially the grille. Lakeland police need your help in identifying this suspect of a grand theft that occurred within the city limits of Lakeland. Donnie Joe Lee of Frostproof has Polk County Sheriff's Office warrants for grand theft of a motor vehicle and dealing with stolen property. On Tuesday, September 5th, 2017, he, along with another suspect, removed a red 610 ATV from a home in Frostproof. The stolen ATV was found in the area of County Road 64 East in Avon Park. Donnie Joe Lee has a criminal history, including 12 felony convictions, including burglary, vehicle theft, dealing in stolen property, narcotics, and grand theft. 45-year-old Lorenzo Carl McCracken is wanted this time for grand theft of a motor vehicle. Deputies say McCracken stole a lady's car in Mulberry on September 24th, 2017. Lakeland police need your help in identifying this suspect of a grand theft that occurred within the city limits of Lakeland. On Saturday, October 2nd, 2017, around 5 a.m., two unknown black males entered the Walmart that is located at 6745 North Church Avenue in Mulberry and selected two blue totes. The two suspects proceeded to the cigarette bullpen where they began to fill the totes with cigarettes. An employee observed the suspects and approached them to deter the theft. However, the suspects fled the store with the merchandise. The employee attempted to grab the merchandise but was unsuccessful. The suspects were observed fleeing the parking lot in a silver-colored compact sedan. This 2006 black Ford F-350 King Ranch with a Florida tag M92 7HS was stolen from Florida Avenue in Dundee between 7 p.m. on October 10th and 9 a.m. on October 11th, 2017. The truck is black and gold and has chrome door handles, a fuel door cover, Nerf bars along the cab, a stainless steel Smith & Wesson 4-inch barreled revolver was in the pistol bag in the center console. These are photos of the actual truck, and the trailer was not attached when it was stolen. Sometime between the hours of 6 p.m. on Friday, October 6th, and 7:15 a.m. on Saturday, October 7th, unknown suspects got the cable securing the chain link fence around Gary's Boating Center, located at 15520 U.S. Highway 27 in Lake Wales, and stole 6 Yamaha brand boat motors. The total value of the motors stolen was $78,000. Lakeland police need your help in identifying this suspect of a grand theft that occurred within the city limits of Lakeland.
If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement was established in 1967 and currently has a staff of over 2,000 employees statewide with an annual budget of approximately $300 million. FDLE is committed to service, integrity, respect, and quality. FDLE has earned accreditation by the National Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, the Commission for Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation, and the American Society for Crime Lab Directors. Sticking around for the second half of our show is Special Agent in Charge Tom Foy. He's the Operational Manager for the Tampa Bay Region's Office. Tom, thank you for sticking around.
Well, thank you, Chip. I got to bring up, I didn't tell you this, but this is our 50th anniversary, FDLE, this year. So we're kicking that off and having some festivities throughout the year.
Well, that's quite an event. That's FDL has changed a lot over the years, I'm sure, as both you and I know about. So
you and I haven't changed, though.
No,
okay.
no, not even at all. No, a little bit grayer, a little bit thinner on the hair. I can't say the rest of it. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit. One of the things that on your domestic security, of course, the sharing of information over the years. That's always one of any business's, law enforcement, biggest weaknesses, if you will, is sharing information, getting it back and forth, and communications. I mean, in any corporation, in anything.
Correct.
Now, you have set up with FDLE fusion centers throughout the state. Can you tell us what a fusion center is and what it does?
Well, certainly. Fusion centers, there's centers throughout the United States, part of the Fusion Center, National Fusion Center Network. FDLE has basically the hub for the state. The governor selects one to be the official fusion center for the state, which ours is at FDLE headquarters, and it's in Tallahassee. Now there's several other, I believe 8 throughout the state in different regions, and Tampa is the only one that does not have one currently, but I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But it's a collaborative effort between local, state, federal agencies, all disciplines, private partners, sharing information to protect citizens from terrorism, and it also is focused on major crime. So information sharing is vital. I mean, this came out, the Fusion Center Network was established long ago, around the time of 9/11, and it's necessary. There's so many people that are basically investigating terrorism or counterterrorism, or it may be from county to county or state to state, criminal enterprises, serial crimes, that you need information sharing to be successful. Partnerships. We talked earlier about partnerships in communities, but you bring in private partners. You have health, you have military, federal agencies, fire, police, all kinds of utilities, infrastructure, all have a seat basically, or a liaison that basically shares the information with the people that actually sit in the fusion centers. And they go through suspicious activity reports. They write briefs, threat assessments. They look at a lot of SARs, suspicious activity reports, and basically vet them and move them to the appropriate law enforcement agency or entity that needs to know about that information. So it's a central clearinghouse from out of state information coming in, or we send out to other states, locally, federally, everything involved. It certainly comes into play with our domestic security efforts. It's a key factor, one of our functions. And I mentioned that Tampa Bay region did not have one.
Yes.
So a year ago, we established a steering committee in the region. Our partners, major sheriff's departments, major police departments, fire departments, Port Authority, health, Department of Health, all belong to this steering committee. And they have been working diligently the last year to the point now we've got funding, we've got a place that's going to be hosted by the Hillsborough Sheriff's Department. It had a large piece of property, open space on Falkenberg, central location for our region, the 8 counties. And many of the major agencies in this area are going to provide staffing. So currently it's in the build out stage. We hope to be functional in the next couple months. It is not an FDLE fusion center. This is a partner, this is the region's fusion center where partners will sit in there. They will bring information in, look through it, send it out. There was not, before this year, there was no one central repository. So agencies as big as this community, this region, did not have a place to send information to, or did not have a fusion center, anybody sending the intelligence out. So it's going to be a great attribute for this region. So.
It really sounds that way. Yeah. And interestingly, as you said, if someone has information or a suspicion about someone that's outside of our Central Florida, Tampa Bay area,
right.
They can still call FDLE and it'll get to whether it needs to be in Denver
Absolutely.
Or California or Alaska or
that
wherever.
National center, the National Fusion Center Network is very strong, and they talk together daily. So that's the way to go.
Absolutely. Now there's a number of other things now I know that the state deals with. Mm-hmm. I know that with the disaster with Hurricane Irma, that has been a major response, and that FDLE actually coordinated the law enforcement response, I guess, in Puerto Rico.
Well, we had a request following a visit from the governor and our commissioner and others that were basically flew into Puerto Rico, and at the request of the governor of Puerto Rico, he has requested that state of Florida, and specifically FDLE, help manage the law enforcement response. Now, in large-scale disasters such as this, and even in our United States, one state may need help, as we did in Irma, in South Florida, in Miami, in the Keys, in the Southwest Florida region. It was so significant that out-of-state resources may be needed. In Puerto Rico, the governor made that call to the governor just this week, and obviously this was previously aired, but they made the request and they asked for 1,500 law enforcement officers, specifically bilingual.
That is a lot of people to go in to help.
That's from all over the United States. So that takes some coordination. They need to know what they're going to do when they get there. We need to track who's coming, when they go in, when they come out, what their missions are while they're there. It's a coordinated effort with what will be set up at Puerto Rico, a state EOC, if you will.
Yes.
And FDLE is going to coordinate that law enforcement response throughout the country, throughout the United States.
Well, that's going to be a major undertaking, and I'm sure that y'all will rise to that task.
Yes, we have good people. Good people. They're used to, unfortunately, we're far too used to some of the storms in Florida, which gives them the experience to hopefully, answer that call.
Yeah. Now, one of the other things that FDLE has, they have a number of different services that they do with law enforcement professionalism, and one of the interesting things I think people aren't aware of is your forensic lab.
Correct.
Can you tell us about that?
Well, here right in Tampa Bay, in our region, at Tampa Bay Regional Operations Center. We have an investigative side, which, I have squads that, investigate all kinds of crimes. And then on the other side, we have a forensic side lab. All right, we have a full service lab. It's next to, Orlando and Tampa. They're the biggest in the state. Now there's labs throughout the state except for Miami. So 5 other regions. In our region, in Tampa, we have biology, DNA, latent prints, firearms, chemistry. So there are scientists and talented people that are really working with the local law enforcement departments, the state agencies that submit every day from every county in this region that are submitting their daily evidence to our lab, and our people through their talent are finding, enhancing the evidence, able to where they can testify on behalf of those agencies' cases and help bring those people to justice.
And that's so important because the cost of having a lab like that, most agencies just cannot afford to do that. So that service is just invaluable.
It is. It's been a long commitment from the state of Florida and FDLE to have those labs, yes.
I wanted to talk real quickly. Also on the website, y'all are in charge of the amber and the silver alerts. And there's a way for people that they want to get those, they can do that. So
certainly, they can go online and easy enough to register. All the links are there to do that. Amber alerts and silver alerts are so important. They save lives, there's no doubt. In fact, I mentioned to you earlier, we had an amber alert here that Polk County had just last October. Rebecca Lewis, 4-year-old, a little girl, Precious, was taken from her Lakeland home and taken out of state. We worked with Polk County, our CART team, child abduction response team responded to that area. That team is made up by at minimum 20 agencies come together, talented detectives when there's a case like this and an amber alert, and they work through leads and such.
I don't think people realize that it's that large of an operation.
It's important. There's strength in numbers, Chip. If you bring in that many talented people, one agency can possibly do it, but time is of the essence in an abduction. So you bring those numbers together and those professionals, and you work through tips, leads, go through the bushes, whatever it needs to be. She was seen in Memphis, Tennessee 3 days later. Because of the Amber Alert, she was seen by a security guard at a hospital in Memphis who recognized her, recognized the car, and reported it. Police department came and recovered her and got the bad guy in jail. And she was lucky enough unharmed. So it was a good success story right here in the backyard.
Yeah, that's always good to when the story ends like that, that the child is safely reunited with their family.
Absolutely.
And it's just so heartbreaking when you have these things, but there again, it's just that communications that we had talked about earlier, just
partnerships.
So important.
Yeah.
Well, Agent Foy, thank you for being with us today. We appreciate it, and we didn't get to everything on our list, but maybe we can finish this at a later date.
Be my pleasure. Thank you, Chip.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
For more information on FDLE, you can check them out on the web at www.fdle.state.fl.us or follow them on Facebook at FDLE. That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind, Heartland Crime Stoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crimes through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life here in Polk County. For more information, you can check us out on the web at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. Until next time, keep in mind, it's a crime and you can help make sure that they don't get away with it.